Hi, this is Stephen from Mona Disown. In this video, I'll be reviewing the 2022 Alienware X17R2, which is sponsored, by my own wallet. It costs $3,600. For that, you get a max 175W RTX 3080 Ti, an i7 12700H CPU, a 360Hz 1080p panel, 32GB of DDR5 4800MHz RAM, a 1TB SSD, and a mechanical Cherry MX keyboard. Now, pricing starts at $2,300 for an RTX 3060. The 3070 Ti is $400 more, and the 3080 Ti is an additional $550. The i9-12900HK is another $300. Now, the base panel is 1080p 165Hz, with the 360Hz being an extra $100. Now, both have advanced Optimus and G-Sync. Then the chassis is made out of a mix of magnesium alloy and aluminium. The underside has some good air intakes, and even at the sides with speaker grills that fire underneath. Now, the battery is 87 watt hours and lasted me about 2.5 hours streaming YouTube at 50% brightness. It has two 2-watt tweeters and two 2-watt subs, and the audio is actually pretty good. They fire out underneath and also from the front, and I found them loud enough to be heard over the max fan, which is 51 decibels. Now, unfortunately for those working in music, it did fail my real-time audio latency test. You will notice there are actually 4 fans that blow hot air out of the elongated heat sinks at the rear, as well as long heat sinks at both sides of the laptop. Now, I actually quite like the design, as the sides are still clean looking, with only the power port and the audio jacks. But yet, it still does a good job of cooling the chassis. Now, I'm not a fan of the inverted motherboard, but to be fair, you have 2 M.2 slots and 2 RAM slots for upgrades. As for thermal paste, they actually use what's called Element 31, which is a combination of gallium and silicon that is available on just the 3070 Ti and the 3080 Ti models only. Now, unfortunately, the Wi-Fi 6E card is actually soldered on, so you cannot upgrade that. Now, most of the ports are actually towards the rear, and this actually does keep cables away from you. But unfortunately, I found that the RGB around it was so bright that unless you have a light shining directly onto them, the glare made it really hard to see where the ports are. I think, to be honest, what they should have done was, like on the Legion 7, have symbols along at the back there which are lit up, and you can see what they are and where they are. I did choose to get the Cherry MX mechanical keyboard, and that has 1.5mm of travel, and on the most part I did enjoy typing and playing on it. It did have good tactile feedback, and did have a subtle click that I didn't find that was too loud. Now, my main issue was the lack of lighting on the secondary functions, which made it very awkward to type in the dark. I honestly don't know why they do this. Not sure if the regular keyboard has the same thing, but it is frustrating that you pay a premium for less functionality. I did like the keyboard deck though. It is covered in a nice soft touch material that hides fingerprints well. Now, the touchpad is on the smaller side, certainly compared to competing laptops, but it worked well and it was a pleasure to use. On the right hand side, there are 2 air intakes to feed those 2 smaller fans that we saw earlier. Now, I did like the separate audio controls that you see on the right hand side of the keyboard. The RGB on the keyboard, around the rear exhaust, and on also the Alienware logo on the lid, it actually can be changed via the software, for which you can create your own profile or just turn them off. Now, the lid does have a nice clean look to it, and you do have the number 17 in the bottom corner. Now, if you get the 15-inch model, that will be a 15 there. Now, due to the large rear heatsink area, the Alienware X17R2 is actually quite deep. The panel does have more flex than, say, the Razer Blade 17, but I did find that the hinges were nice and stiff. My 360Hz panel looked pretty decent. Fairly bright at 325 nits and 96% of sRGB, but its contrast was fairly low at 660:1. Still, I did enjoy using it both for media and for gaming, and its 1 millisecond response time and high refresh rate provided very good ghosting performance, and it also had no backlight bleed. And I also like the infrared Windows Hello camera. So we do have a 720p webcam, which is a shame because competing laptops are now having 1080p ones, and you can tell it's not quite as clear, but the microphone is pretty good, and this is what it's like when you're typing. Now, one big selling point is you do have Advanced Optimus, which allows you to automatically switch between the dedicated GPU and Optimus mode without having to restart. In dedicated GPU mode, you have G-Sync as well. The included 330 watt power brick is small when you compare it to the 230 watt brick used by the HP Omen 16 Advantage. At 20.9mm, it is very slim when you consider all the power that's in this laptop, and the choice of material helps to keep the weight down a bit, although the extra copper in it does make it heavier than the Aorus 17 and the Razer Blade 17. You have a number of power profiles to choose from, but in my testing I use thermal performance mode, and by pressing the FN and F1 key you activate high performance mode, and this also serves to increase the fan speed. Alienware uses a PL1 of 115 watts on the 12700H, which it holds even without the high performance mode. Although without the extra fan speed, that does start to struggle to stay cool, running around about 100 degrees and 90 degrees with the max fan. Now, there's no doubting that this extra power does provide a really nice boost in performance, easily besting the same CPU in the Aorus 17 and the 12800H in the Razer Blade 17. And is an amazing 27% faster than my Ryzen 7 5800H in the Legion 7. Single core performance is also very good, and this translates into excellent frame rates when CPU speed counts the most. Now, many using this 360Hz panel will want to maximize the frame rate by tweaking the game settings, and this 12700H does not disappoint. Alienware has two overclock settings, which are quite anemic to be honest, as I show in these Firestrike and TimeSpice results. But increasing the core by 214 MHz and the memory by 229 MHz using Afterburner does see a good jump in performance. Now, I think Alienware were fairly conservative in their overclock here, which is a shame. Now, Far Cry 6 really benefits from a fast CPU, even at ultra settings. The same is true for the Aorus 17 and the Razer Blade 17, whose CPU is less fast. We see a nice boost over the 140 watt RTX 3080, and overclocking sees about a 6% boost. Initially, for the 12700H can run up to 90 watts when gaming, but it will drop back after a couple of minutes as it generally drops to around about 45 watts, and more power then goes to the 3080 Ti, as is shown here in Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark. Now, I found gaming temperatures were pretty good, even without the max fan, as shown here in the clip of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And gaming performance is also good, but I do feel that the 3080 Ti can be clocked higher. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, overclocking sees a 10% boost, which shows that the resolution of 1080p is no issue for the 12700H. It handles ray tracing pretty well. Here it is in Cyberpunk 2077. Switching to high performance mode sees a 6% boost, and overclocking provides another 7% improvement. Now, Battlefield 2042 is a tough one to benchmark. I use a 128 player map, to replicate what most people will do, but it is hard to get consistent results, so I will just likely use it for guidance purposes only. Now, it handles it well in high performance mode. Thermals are good, and when overclocked, the 3080 Ti doesn't seem to get any hotter. Now, all of my results with the Aorus 17 are with that laptop attached to an external display, which was the only way to get dedicated GPU comparison with that laptop. Now, I do suggest you watch the review on that laptop to see how it gets on in stock Optimus mode, but there is so much variation going on in this game, so these frame rates are for information purposes only. In this slide, I showed a percentage improvement the 3080 Ti brings to the table, compared to the 140 watt 3070 as the baseline 100%, the 150 watt RTX 3070 Ti in the Razer Blade 17, and the 140 watt 3080 in the GP66. Now, I don't include Battlefield 2042, but it should give you an idea of its relative performance. I actually show the same using TimeSpy and Firestrike, showing the total average in the slide at the bottom. Now, the 175 watt 3080 Ti was only 17.9% faster than the 140 watt 3070, 10.8% faster than the 150 watt 3070 Ti, and perhaps most strikingly, only 2% faster than the 140 watt RTX 3080. And the problem as I see it is that the only time I saw it get close to that 175 watts was in 3D Mark testing, never in actual gameplay. And the fact that manually overclocking it can see up to a 10% boost in pretty much all the tests I did. This shows that Alienware did leave a lot on the table with their overclock modes. Now perhaps Nvidia should have a higher boost clock natively, especially for systems that can handle the extra watts. Now Alienware does do a great job with the 12700H, and it shows that the 12800H in the Razer Blade 17 makes no sense at all. Now the Alienware X17R2 is a nice looking laptop. It runs cool when gaming, but there's no denying that it is expensive for the gaming performance that you do get. But to be fair, we are living in crazy times where things are going to get even more expensive. Now make sure you're subscribed to catch my live gaming stream video on this laptop. And also I've got an upcoming MSI GE66 to review. I'd like to thank you for watching. Bye now.